Okay, let's start with a kind of a wild thought. What if the most romantic thing you could possibly do for your partner is talk about what happens if you break up? I know, it sounds completely crazy, right? But today, we're going to dive into the blueprint for a modern marriage and explore why a prenup might just be the ultimate act of love.
Wow, this quote, it just gets right to the heart of everything. I mean, think about it. Building a house with no blueprints? You wouldn't even dream of it. The foundation, the walls, the electricity, it would be an absolute disaster. So why on earth do so many of us walk into a marriage, which is, let's be honest, a massive legal and financial undertaking, with absolutely no plan?
And this slide right here shows exactly where that disconnect is. On the one hand, we're sold this beautiful fairy tale, all about love, romance, and that happily ever after. But the reality? Well, the reality is that marriage is a serious contract. It's a financial partnership. And when you ignore that side of it, that's when the real trouble can start.
So what happens when we go into this whole thing unprepared? Well, it can start to feel a lot less like a loving partnership and a lot more like a business transaction. And the price you pay for being unprepared, well, as we're about to see, it can be unbelievably high. Okay, here's a classic example. When a marriage isn't built on a solid foundation of shared values and, clear agreements, it can turn into something that feels like a short-term deal. In this case, it's a marriage for status that ends just a few years later with a big fat claim for alimony. It's a pretty stark reminder of what happens when that foundation is shaky. And we see this transactional trap all over the place in the modern world too. Think about it. A famous athlete and an influencer get together. It's great for both of their brands. But what happens when the endorsement deals dry up? The relationship crumbles. Love suddenly becomes leverage, and the whole partnership is exposed as hollow the second it gets tested. But here's what's really important to understand. The biggest cost in all of this, it's not the money. When these unprepared marriages fall apart, the ultimate price is paid by the children. They end up as collateral damage, caught in the middle of messy custody battles and broken homes. So the big question is, how do we protect ourselves and our future families from all this? Well, the answer is to create a modern safety net. And to do that, we have to completely rethink and redefine a tool that gets a really bad rap, the prenuptial agreement. Now I know what you're thinking. A prenup sounds so pessimistic, like you're planning to fail before you even start. But we need to forget that old way of thinking. This is about reframing it. A prenup isn't a sign of distrust. It's an act of deep respect. It's about creating clarity and taking responsibility before things get messy. It's about protecting everyone from chaos. This is such a perfect analogy. Nobody clicks their seatbelt hoping they'll get into a car crash, right? Of course not. You do it because it's the responsible thing to do, to protect yourself and your passengers just in case. A prenup is exactly the same. It might feel a little awkward, but it's an absolutely necessary safety measure. Okay, so if a prenup is our blueprint, what's actually in it? What does a really strong, modern agreement cover? Let's break down the key parts. All right, first and foremost, and this is a huge one, financial clarity. A good prenup spells out exactly how you're going to handle money. Who pays for what? How do you split assets? Who's on the hook for any debt? It even sets clear, predictable limits on alimony. Basically, it gets rid of all the fuzzy areas that cause so many fights down the road. But it's not just about the money. A modern prenup can actually lay out the blueprint for your whole family structure. We're talking about everything from confirming paternity to planning out child custody to reduce any potential conflict. You can even define roles and responsibilities in the marriage, and this is a big one, set terms for what happens if someone walks away without a good reason. It ensures you both take the commitment seriously. And that's the real magic here. Creating a prenup is so much more than just signing a legal document. The process of making one forces you to have the absolute most critical conversations you can have in a relationship, about roles, about respect, and about potential red flags. Just look at these questions. They're the absolute bedrock of a successful partnership, aren't they? The prenup isn't just paper, it's a catalyst. It makes you and your partner actually sit down and give honest answers to these things. It gets you both on the same page, instead of just hoping for the best based on a bunch of assumptions. Okay, now we have to get into some hard truths, and this is a big one. If your partner flat out refuses to even discuss a prenup, that's not romantic. That is a major red flag. It suggests they're not willing to have open, honest, and responsible conversations about your future together. And if their attitude is basically, hey, let's just roll the dice and see what happens, you have to ask yourself, do you really want your future treated like a gamble? A lifelong commitment shouldn't be a lottery ticket. It needs to be a well-thought-out plan.
And that leads to this final point. If your partner truly believes that love is somehow above talking about practical things like money, they're probably just not ready for a real commitment. True partnership means you can face these tough topics together, head on.
All right, so let's say you're on board. You get the logic. But how in the world do you actually do this in a way that helps, not hurts your relationship? Let's walk through a clear action plan to build a stronger future.
It really boils down to 5 simple steps. 1. Start early. Have this conversation way before you're even engaged, when there's no pressure. 2. Use lawyers, and I mean separate lawyers for each of you. Do not try to DIY your legal future. 3. Be fair. The goal here is to protect both of you, not for one person to get everything. 4. Update it. A prenup isn't set in stone. Revisit it every few years or after a big life event like having a baby. And finally, number 5. Normalize it. The more we all talk about this openly, the less of a taboo it will be.
So when you boil it all down, this is the core message. A prenup isn't cold or cynical. It's not the opposite of love. It's actually courageous. It's an expression of love that's strong enough to face reality. It's you saying, I love you and I respect us enough to plan for our entire future, together.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. After looking at marriage this way, as a blueprint that needs a solid plan, what do you think? Can this kind of practical planning actually make love stronger? Or does preparing for the worst just kill the romance from the start? It's a really important conversation. Thanks for tuning in.